guys? It's Dave and Duncan back from Metal Epidemic for another album review. And on this review, we have been checking out the new album from South Carolina sludge metalers Witchpit. The band's new album, The Weight of Death, will be released on March 25th via Heavy Psych Sounds. So, formed back in 2015 by Thomas White of The Sign of the Southern Cross, Your Chance to Die, and his long-lasting relationships from around South Carolina heavy music community, Witchpit quickly became a serious force within their scene. After recording their first single, Infernal, in 2018, the band started to make waves, releasing the track through Weedian. Over the next few years, the band dropped another pair of singles and started to receive some meaningful press and support from around the community. In the meantime, they picked up endorsements from Emperor Cabinets and Black Harbour Strings. And now Witchpit are gearing up to release their debut LP.
A whole queen that no one will ever understand. They'll not understand. We have done what? 6 reviews? 5 reviews?
6.
This is the 6th review tonight. The 6th and final review tonight. All of them debuts.
Yep.
Never happens.
Yeah.
It's like waiting on a bus, Dave. Waiting on a bus, there's no buses, and then all of a sudden 6 debuts come along. Sure, that's how the analogy goes.
Yes. So debut LP coming out on Heavy Psych Sounds. The album was recorded and engineered by Philip Cope of Kylesa. Totally new band to me. I hadn't heard of these guys before. And I read a little bit of the press release. I read obviously it was sludge metal. I kind of had in my head how I thought this was going to go.
All right.
And then when it kicked in, I was thinking, right, this is going to be big, slow, chunky swagger, you know what I mean? The usual kind of sludge stuff. And it kicked in, I was like, oh, wait a minute, this is not where I thought this was going to go. It was like a bit more like kind of punk infused kind of sludge. Yep. The first track is OTTR. Otter. I don't know if that's just.
I think it's. I'm going to assume it's an acronym for.
Yeah. It comes like kind of flying out the gate, very high octane. Again, the riffs are kind of higher up the guitar neck. A bit of a kind of like high on fire type kind of ferocity to it. So it kind of initially I was like kind of threw me off. I was like, oh wait a minute, what's right? Okay, let's see what happens here. And then around about the kind of 2-minute mark. There's like, hold on, they just take their foot slightly off the accelerator.
Just bring it down,
and they just slow it down into those slow, sludgy grooves. And it's a glorious moment. It's just like, that's the sweet spot. That's what I'm waiting on.
It's a contrast thing. Like I think, like you get and they do it a lot on this. And there's a band I'm going to mention later on that also utilize it really, really well, and it's why I love them as much as I do. There's a complacency to understanding how good a sludge groove is if the rhythms and tempos before that groove kicks in are exactly the same. You know, you need a pace change that when it kicks in, you're like, it's like sliding into a warm, boozy bath.
I think you're going somewhere else there.
Well, what were you saying? It's also like that as well. I make the same face regardless. But there's something about like you just kind of. It's difficult not to smile, you know, when you just like, that's it, and you need that contrast, and these guys utilize that well.
Yeah, and they attack it with such like confidence, like it's just. Like I was like, it's like kind of part like Eyehategod, but like there's a little kind of whiff of like Acid King in there as well. It's very southern sounding, but as you say, it's so satisfying because of that kind of like high tempo that you had before it.
Yeah.
And as you say, they use that formula kind of regularly throughout this release. Again, you'll hear it on track 2, the Black and Fee. Although this time it kind of leans more on the kind of doomier side of things and with less of the kind of southern traits. And again on like Fire and Ice, which is like nicely channeling Lemmy and Motörhead.
It's 100%.
I think actually though Fire and Ice had probably my favourite kind of slow southern groove.
I think it's
the album.
The best song on this.
Yeah,
I think it's positioned perfectly as
really
well.
Cool.
It's a fucking really, 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 really good track.
Yeah. Little kind of like little hints of down, or even there's like a wee bit of kind of Church of Misery in there as well, which is like, it's never a bad thing. And I think like for a debut, again, it doesn't sound like a band that are just like on their first album. No. It sounds like these guys have been doing this for years, and it's nothing like that I haven't heard done before, but it feels very authentic, and it does justice to the genre. I like the vocalist Denny Stone, his name is, really cool tone, very kind of gravelly, but you can make out everything that he's saying. Doesn't really change much. His kind of vocal tone and register is pretty much
doesn't have to.
Straight, right through. But you know, it's a sludge album, so like I wasn't expecting much else, to be honest. I like his intensity though, and that the last track, Mr. Miserum. You can really hear him kind of going for it a bit more vocally, trying to push his range that bit further, and you can hear it kind of, he's going for that kind of mix between like a kind of scream and a little bit of kind of melody. And that one track is the kind of the one that sounds a little bit different to the rest of the album. It's got a little bit more quirky, which I liked.
Last track though, Dave, that's what you do in that last track, you flex.
Experiment a wee bit, and it's got a real cool kind of rhythm to it as well. They don't do that kind of like start fast and then transition to something slow. They just keep it at that this kind of head nodding kind of doomy type pace. But it was a really good closer though. The production's cool. It's got like a kind of very kind of old school kind of feel to it. Still got
smoky rooms, Dave.
Yeah, totally. Totally. It's still got the a lot of kind of typical sludge traits, but it's not like overly abrasive sounding either. Like a lot of the kind of modern sludge albums you hear are like really like abrasive and corrosive sounding, but it's not quite like that. The guitars don't feel like kind of too out in front, but they're still powerful enough for those kind of like slower, groovier parts to have a bit of impact. And even though the guitar tone is more of a kind of, it's got more of a kind of punkier kind of sludge tone than a kind of thick, corrosive kind of sound, it doesn't affect the kind of delivery of any of the riffs at all. I enjoyed this. A lot of it is quite routine, but nothing like hugely unique, but it's one of those ones that every time I hear it, I kind of like it a little bit more. And it's one of the releases out of the kind of like 6 that we've done over the last week. I've kind of came back to this more than some of the others. There's something about it that just kind of makes me want to go back and kind of re-listen to it. I enjoyed this. Nothing like, that's pushing crazy boundaries or anything, but solid from start to end. What about yourself? What do you think?
So we spoke about this briefly before we started recording here. The band I would liken them most to is a British band called Orange Goblin, who do a very similar. They're like the British version of this, essentially. In that, I imagine if you got both bands together, gave them both a sheet of paper and a pencil and said, write your influences down, and then we brought them together at the end, there'd be more that matched than didn't match. Yeah. Specifically when you're talking about like those kind of Motörhead kind of tinges, both bands have them. Vocally, both bands are very, very, very similar. Yeah. And I don't mean to use that in a way where I'm like, well, they're just copying Orange Goblin or a bit like that. No, I think like Orange Goblin are a very unique band that I feel at times more bands should sound like that don't. So the chance to hear someone do the American spin on it, so you're getting that southern kind of sludgy vibe going, where they kind of take the kind of more British version of what we do, classics kind of doom or sludge from a Britain perspective, which is not the same, doesn't have the same swagger. In a lot of respects, it's more kind of rocky, and this is more kind of sludgy. That's what it get like and they're forever utilizing that kind of you really attack the piece, and then here comes that big groove riff, and I love that. And you just give me an album of that, and I would be like so internally happy. And Witchpit have that in spades, and they deliver it every time, and every time they deliver it, even though I know they're going to do it. Even though I can feel it coming, even on my first listen, I could be like, in 5, 4, 3, like when it hits, there's nothing more satisfying than that point when it hits. Like you kind of just go, yeah, and that's cool. There's something. It's usually a negative for me in other bands where I like if I feel the music's a bit like predictive text. You know, where you're like, here we go. I can see this coming up. I could almost work against it. This genre, it strongly works for it. I think they have a great mix of riffs here. I really, really, really do. And granted, it isn't necessarily doing anything remarkably new, but something kind of comfort, and specifically, once again, in this genre of music, of having that. I think there's like they do enough nods to the old while putting their spin on it as well, which kind of makes me happy. Vocally, I love it. He does sit within that one register, but guess what? That one register works when they're being a bit more attacky and a bit more rocky, as it does on the doomy, sludgy stuff as well. It works right through it. And why fucking try and change it if it's, you know, if it works through? So I love those elements. The production, perfect. Pitch perfect on this one. It's not too clean. It's not too dirty. There are moments of imperfection in there, but I actually think it adds character and charm to the release overall. Gives it a degree of authenticity, which I think, you know, makes me smile. Fire and Ice is the one where I think the band levels up. I think they do a bit more in here in terms of the actual building structures and what they deliver. But you're rewarded in almost every track. There's no track here where it kind of feels like, well, this is the filler song on them. All of them are really, really, really strong songs in their own right. Some are maybe preferentially more in line with my tastes, but there's not a bad thing on here. And like you said as well, I think his biggest credit is its return value. Of all, we've been listening to quite a few albums for these recordings that we've ran through tonight that you'll be hearing over space and time. And a lot of them have been kind of either one and done because I haven't really wanted to go back and listen to it, or one and done because it's been so fucking heavy and so oppressive that you just need air after it. And Witchpit occupy that kind of space where, regardless what mood I was in, I know I'd be happy listening to this. It's going to enhance a happy day, but it's also going to kind of turn my frown upside down if I'm not having a good day. So there's that as well. I think the fact that they're charting a bit of success and they're getting those endorsements as well, it sounds like they've been involved in different projects, and this is the one they've kind of almost tied their flag to, and I think that's a good thing because this is the one that I think has longevity, and they've got a sound that I want to hear more of. Like this finishes, and there's a part of me that's like that. You could have flung an extra 2 songs in the end of this one, I'd be just as happy listening to them. And that's a rarity nowadays. Like when you have a 30 odd minute album, EP or whatever, like when it finishes, I'm like, yep, we're done. Thank God. Let's go and talk about it now. Whereas this one, you could have shoved another cheeky 1 or 2 in here, and I would have been happy with that for sure. It's difficult to dislike music like this. You'd have to be a bit of a prick. I'm safe to say that the guy that we would sometimes accredit or espouse those qualities to is not on this recording. So, yeah, it's a big old loving.
Yeah, for sure. So, ratings for this new one from Witchpit, The Weight of Death. Like as you said, not a lot to dislike here, to be honest. There's no weak tracks. There's no filler here. And as you said, it's one of those albums that you can just go back to and just enjoy it. It's comfortable to listen to. Yeah, it's not like, you know, crazy unique or anything like that, but there's something about something that just like knows what it is and it does it really well, that you want to kind of go back and listen to it again. Great. So I go 4 out of 5 on this one. Enjoyed it. Be yourself.
Spot on. 4. Yeah, 100% a 4. Like I say, I challenge you to listen to this and not enjoy it. I think there are certain bands that play music within a genre that's safe, and Witchpit are that band. Like this you could listen to them. Like you listen to them driving, you listen to them in the bar, you listen to them at a gig. Like these, they're a band that just will occupy. And the thing is, we'll give you the same feeling regardless where it's played. So they're on something good here, and also amazing name for a band. Like we haven't even discussed that yet.
Yeah.
Album artwork for this one is fucking bitchin'. Name of the band, fucking bitchin'. Well played, gents. And if you ever come across to Scotland, let us know.
I'll be there. Witchpit, The Weight of Death, out on March 25th via Heavy Psych Sounds. I'll put some links below to the band's Facebook and to the Bandcamp so you can check it out. Let us know what you think once you've checked out some tracks, once you've heard the album. Happy to hear your thoughts and opinions on it. That is the review. Thank you for checking out, much appreciated. Hit that subscribe button if you wouldn't mind, and we'll catch you on the next review. Cheers.
Bye everyone.